I always dreamed of a life filled with luxury and comfort, and marrying James seemed like the dream come true. He was everything I had ever wanted: charming, wealthy, and successful. I had heard whispers about his vast fortune and powerful connections, but I had no idea just how much I was about to learn. At first, everything seemed perfect. Our days were filled with laughter, lavish dinners, and endless adventures. He made me feel like I was the center of his world. But as time went on, I started noticing small things. His late nights, the secretive phone calls, and the way his phone screen always flipped over when he got a message. I brushed it off at first, telling myself that it was just part of his busy life. But the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach wouldn't go away. The more I tried to ignore it, the more certain I became that something wasn't right. One night, as I was tidying up the office, I found something that would change everything. A letter. It was addressed to him, written in an unfamiliar handwriting. My heart raced as I opened it, the words on the paper a brutal shock. "I miss you," it said. "When will we be together again?" I couldn't breathe. The man I had married, the man I thought I knew, was leading a double life. And it wasn't just business secrets. It was something far darker. I had married a billionaire. But what did that really mean if it came at the cost of my trust? The truth was out there, and I was determined to find it. Little did I know the path ahead would tear apart everything I thought I knew about him and about myself. The next few days were a blur of emotions. My mind raced, trying to process everything. I kept replaying the letter in my head, the cold words echoing in my ears. Who was he really? I decided I had to confront him. No more hiding from the truth. That evening, after a long day of pretending everything was fine, I sat him down in our living room. My hands shook as I held the letter tightly, the weight of what I was about to do settling heavily on my shoulders. "James," I began, my voice trembling, "I found something." He looked at me, the calm expression on his face not giving anything away. "What is it, darling?" he asked, his voice soothing, almost too soothing. "This letter," I said, handing it to him. "Who wrote it?" His face went pale for a split second before he recovered, quickly glancing at the letter. For the first time since I met him, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. "I can explain," he said, his voice tight, "but this isn't what it seems." I couldn't breathe. "Then explain it. Who is she?" He hesitated, his eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape. I was going to tell you, I just didn't know how. There are things I've kept hidden, things I couldn't share." The room felt colder. I was suffocating in the silence between us, the weight of his secrets pressing down on me. "Who is she?" I repeated, my voice stronger now, desperate for the truth. He took a deep breath and slowly, carefully, began to speak. "She's someone I've known for years. He stopped, his words trailing off as if he was searching for the right one. "She's someone from my past, a relationship I never let go of." I stared at him, the disbelief turning to anger. How long had he been lying? This wasn't just about a late-night call or secret meetings. It was about betrayal, and I was standing in the middle of it, unable to comprehend the man I had married. The man I thought I knew was unraveling before me, piece by piece, and I didn't know if I could put the pieces back together. But the truth was clear. This was only the beginning. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I couldn't stop thinking about everything he had confessed. It wasn't just the affair, it was the deceit, the manipulation, the lies. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that his double life went deeper than I had ever imagined. I began digging into his business dealings, his personal contacts, everything. I needed to know who he really was. What else was he hiding from me? The more I uncovered, the more disturbed I became. The woman wasn't just someone from his past. She was someone who was still very much in his life. And as I dug deeper, I found evidence that they had been in contact for years. Texts, emails, meetings, everything meticulously hidden from me. I felt sick, betrayed on a level I couldn't even begin to explain. The worst part was when I discovered that he had been using his wealth to manipulate people, keeping them under his control. Businesses, investments, friendships. He had built an empire not just with his brains, but with lies, blackmail, and secretive, underhanded tactics. And then just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I found another shock. A hidden account linked to his name, but one I had never seen before. There were millions of dollars in it, and the transactions were questionable, to say the least. It was obvious. He had been hiding something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. I confronted him again, demanding answers. "James, what is this?" I asked, showing him the hidden account and all the proof I had gathered. His face turned pale, his demeanor shifting as he realized the extent of what I had discovered. For the first time, he didn't have an answer. I never meant for this to happen," he said, his voice shaky. I stared at him, my mind racing. Was this the man I had married? Was this the person I had trusted with my life, my heart, and my future? I was angry, hurt, but most of all, I was disillusioned. Everything I thought I knew about him had crumbled into dust. There was a part of me that wanted to forgive him, to let him explain, but another part of me knew that this wasn't just an affair. It was a betrayal of who I was as a person. And in that moment, I realized that I deserved more than the lies he had been feeding me. I walked away not just from him, but from the version of myself that had been so naive. But the hardest part was yet to come. I still loved him, and walking away would mean facing the reality that I had to rebuild everything without him. Leaving him wasn't as simple as just walking out the door. It felt like I was leaving behind not just a man, but an entire life, a life I thought was perfect, a life I had dreamed of. I didn't just have to let go of my marriage, I had to let go of the fantasy I had built around it. In the days that followed, I tried to focus on myself. I spent hours contemplating the years I had spent with James, wondering how I had missed the signs, how I had ignored the red flags in my search for security and love. I had given him everything, my trust, my heart, my time, and in return, I was left with nothing but shattered illusions. I knew I had to take control of my life again, but it wasn't easy. The pain of betrayal cut deep, and the thought of starting over was both terrifying and freeing. But I wasn't the same woman I was when I first met James. I had learned so much through this experience. Self-respect, independence, and strength were values I would never compromise again. But life had other plans. As I started to regain my footing, I got a call. The woman James had been seeing, she was now in the picture, playing a dangerous game with his empire. She wanted more than just him. She wanted control over everything he had built. And she wasn't going to stop until she got it. I was pulled back into his world, not because I wanted to be, but because I had to. James's empire was crumbling, and now it was my turn to decide. Should I step back into his world, knowing how broken it was, or should I walk away forever? My emotions swirled as I weighed my options. A part of me wanted to leave it all behind, to start fresh and never look back. But there was another part of me, the part that had loved him, that had trusted him, that couldn't stand the idea of him falling apart completely. He had betrayed me, yes, but in that betrayal, there was still a sliver of connection that I couldn't just erase. I made the hardest decision of my life. I reached out to him, but not to reconcile, not to fix our marriage, but to protect what was left of the empire he had built. In some strange way, it felt like I was finally taking control. I wasn't his savior, and I wasn't going to let him pull me back into his world of lies, but I could make sure that the mess he had made didn't completely ruin everything. In that moment, I realized something. The true power was never in his billions or his manipulative ways. It was in the choices I made. And I chose to walk away stronger, wiser, and free from the chains he had once put around me. The end.